Hello and welcome to the Climb Blue Podcast Q&A. I'm Dan Rolinson, joined by John Townley for this one. Not Jay Ho. Sake. I'm your host for this one, Dan Rolinson, joined by John Townley, not J-H-O-N today. That was yesterday's news with the John Durant contract bonus podcast that we did, but we're still wearing the same clothes because it's literally about 5 minutes afterwards. Yeah. This was the episode that we sat down to do. Durant signed his contract and we thought, you know what, let's do a live stream. But here we are for today's Q&A. This podcast is sponsored by NordVPN, of course. And for the best discount code, you can find the link in the description down below. John, how are you, mate? How's things? I know how you are because we've just been speaking. You're good, aren't you?
Yeah, this is the hardest question in the podcast. I'm fine. Yeah, all good. We're obviously really happy about the Durant news from yesterday. But I think one of the first comments was best way to start the international break or something. Which is great, because now it's really boring from now on in unless Villa announce some more news. Yeah, I'm off this week, which I'm happy about because working the international break is no fun at all.
Let's talk a little bit about United before we get into the questions. We obviously did our post-match reaction on Sunday night, and it was one of those ones that, I mean, fair play to everyone who listened to that, and thank you for tuning in. But Aston Villa 0, Man United 0 isn't the most enticing of scorelines to listen to, and it wasn't the most enticing of matches to watch either, was it?
Yeah, it was pretty dreadful for a football match. Villa clearly had a hangover from the Bayern game, which I said before the match it would go one of two ways. It would either, as it played out, that would happen, or it would actually be a positive for us and we'd do what we did against Arsenal, and it would be like almost like the second half of one big main event, which was Bayern and Man United. That's how I saw it. It's a real shame that we couldn't get the win. However, honestly, because we've suffered against Man United for so long, and I think we all were expecting just to concede a late goal, I was more than happy when the ref blew his whistle and just to kind of stop it there. We've had 7 games at the start of the season. We've got 14 points. It's been a strong start. Man United always give us a harder game than what outsiders would expect, because it's always the case that, Villa will turn up United today. This is going to happen. They'll score 4 goals. No, that was never going to happen. I did think we would have beaten them narrowly, but it was never going to be a situation where Villa were going to score 5 goals like other teams probably would, like Brighton would or whatever. This just isn't a fixture that we compete well in. And it's a real shame because I think we probably would have if we didn't have that Bayern game. So it probably came a little bit early in terms of the difference between those 2 matches. But yeah, it was a shame. We kind of just missed that final ball, and United were kind of resolute enough to kind of just get away with a 0-0. But in the end, if it weren't for that Matty Cash block, I think it was Fernandes that was in on goal from Garnacho. Fernandes also at the bar. Philogene had that great chance at the end for Villa. So ultimately, a draw was the fair result. And to be honest, I was happy just to kind of shake the hand there and say, you know what, we'll move on.
Overall, I don't know what I've quite titled this, but it's along the lines of like Villa's 2 points per game kind of keeps ticking along. We're 14 points from 7. Yeah. If that trend carries on throughout the season, we'll finish on 76 points, which doesn't work like that, but that'll still be a brilliant season. It just feels that if you take, I said this in the post-match, I don't know if you've listened, but if you take the Bayern Munich as its own kind of like world, which it is a different competition, if you take that out of this week, drawing to Ipswich and Man United, who are 2 bottom half sides, isn't good. That's not what you would expect from Villa. I would want 6 points from that, really. So to get 2 feels poor. But because you've had Bayern Munich in the week as the kind of context of, we gave a lot there and that was a brilliant night in itself and what amazing memories, it's made the week feel better, but also probably hindered both the Ipswich game and the United one, to be honest, because Ipswich felt like we took the foot off the gas to prepare for Bayern, and Man United felt like we never got to go in because of Bayern.
Yeah, I think that's bang on. And Emery said before the game that we're not, we're still building the mentality essentially, and that's something I totally agree with, because we are getting used to playing Champions League football. At least, I think the bigger games, with all due respect to young boys, I think the bigger games against Bayern and maybe even Juventus, they will feel like they are huge games, which, because they are. And we will have a bit of I think they will have an impact essentially after, or even before, like the Ipswich match. But last season against Legia and against AZ Alkmaar and those teams, I think that was easier to kind of get over. It was, okay, we go again, because we played a side who aren't as big as what Chelsea are, who we were playing at the weekend, because I think that was the match we played this time last year, I think. We won away after losing to Legia. I think this is something we're going to have to deal with. All the top clubs in world football can manage this, and that's something that we have to do ourselves. And it is a mentality issue, I think. It's not something that I'm going to kind of, I don't know, criticise the players for, because it is so early in the season. And again, it is a process. If we were to have beaten Ipswich, Bayern and United and not shown any signs of fatigue or whatever, I'd be putting us to finish fourth this season 100%. But
I'll be going higher.
Yeah. But right now, I'm kind of in the zone of, I said this on a WhatsApp to you last night, Dan. I was like, well, because there was a comment that I saw, something along the lines of, as long as Villa are in the top 7 after every week, then that's fine, kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if we get Champions League, then fantastic. But if we finish 6th or 5th and get Europa League, also great, because Emery is likely to win that competition or go very far in it. And that's what I want to see. I want us to be going far in European competition and winning something eventually. So, yeah, it kind of United, drawing to United, it does feel a bit like, could have done more. But essentially, as you say, Dan, we're 5th. We are joint 4th. I know you hate that. But we're in a good zone. The only thing I would say is that fixtures have been kind on us, I think, at the start of the campaign, especially if you compare it to last season. I think we had harder games. We'd obviously played Newcastle away, Liverpool away, Chelsea away. We had one more point at this stage last season as well. And we have obviously played Wolves at home, Everton at home, Leicester, Ipswich, 2 newly promoted sides. West Ham aren't having a great run at it so far. So, every game is difficult in the Premier League, granted. I don't know. It's been a good start, but also one that I expected, essentially. I didn't think we would be any worse points-wise than where we are now.
Okay, let's do a bit of a comparison before we get... Obviously, this is the Q&A, and we will get to it in a minute. I spoke to Matt about this on the post-match, about like how much credence does he put on kind of the corresponding fixtures this season versus last. And we kind of got to the point of like, it doesn't really matter that much, but I think it's interesting to have a look at. So firstly, as you mentioned, first 7 games of last year, 15 points. We were 5th with a goal difference of 7. You're right there?
Sorry, dropping things.
First 7 games of this season, 14 points, still 5th, plus 3 goal difference. So very slightly worse in terms of points by 1 and goal difference less 4, but still 5th in the league, which I think Champions League will go down to the 5th place this year, to be honest. In terms of the fixtures, I've looked at the fixtures the oppositions that we played this year versus last. So West Ham away last year, we drew. This year we won, so we're 2 up on that. Arsenal, obviously we won last year at home, we lost this year, so we're 3 down on that fixture. I've got Leicester away, and I've compared that to our first away promoted team last year, which was Burnley away, which we won. So we're the same for that one. Everton at home, we won. Wolves at home, we won. So they're the same. This is where we get different. Ipswich away, we drew, obviously. I've compared that with Sheffield United away, which was our second promoted team away from home, which we won.
We won all 3 away games against the promoted sides, didn't we, sir?
Exactly, away from home. So we're 2 down on that. Whereas Man United, obviously, we lost last year, we drew this year, so we're 1 up there. So from the same corresponding fixtures, we had 16 points last season, and we've got 14 this. So in terms of fixture difficulty, we're around where we were last year. So if that continues, Villa are going to be okay, is kind of my point. I've seen a lot of kind of negative overreaction of like, this is kind of, we've never had it, we've not really played well at any point, like we've scraped through kind of thing. Yeah. I'm not sure that's necessarily true or necessarily worth worrying about. Do you? I'll
be honest, I am a little bit worried that we haven't played particularly well in, like, for example, Arsenal, we played well in, and we should have been 2-0 up, but we won and we lost the match 2-0. So I'm a little bit concerned that, firstly, injuries have piled up at the start of the season. Hopefully we'll be able to get Onana, McGinn and Ramsey back for the Fulham match. Obviously, Mings and Kamara are going to be, hopefully, in our matchday squad as well, if not the next one. But we don't know how long they're going to take to get back up to speed. Konsa is a bit of a concern. Hopefully, again, he won't take too long. And I don't want to put a kind of a marker on it, but I think we played Tottenham in about 4 weeks. I think you want him back for that game. If he has to miss Brentford and Fulham, then, so be it, because I think it's a hamstring issue, which is obviously one that you have to be careful with. But I'm a little bit concerned about how we haven't quite hit off yet, and we have played teams who I'd expect us to beat. And again, I keep going back to it, every game is going to be difficult, granted, but it feels like we've kind of got over the line in those matches. Like Wolves, we left it very late to win the game. Everton essentially relied on a wonder goal from John Duran. West Ham was a great result. Any away game, if you win, I don't care how we play. 3 points is the key thing. But against Ipswich, we defended pretty dreadfully. I'm a little bit kind of, I need to see us, for example, go to Tottenham and put in a really good performance and get a result like we did last season. I'm not saying we have to win the game because I don't believe that. Obviously, you just want to avoid a defeat really against a rival away from home. And then you want to beat them at home. We obviously play Chelsea as well relatively soon. So those fixtures, Liverpool as well, that's going to be a real barometer of where we are. If we get, I don't want to say outplayed because I don't think we will, but if we lose that game, comfortably 2-0 or something, then it's a bit like, okay, are we going to have to kind of temper our expectation a little bit? And I came into the season thinking as long as we get European football and have a good stab at the Champions League, I'm happy. And I stand by that. But obviously, at the start of this season, you want to be as close to that top 4 as possible and just see where we are. I think if in February we're 6th and we're 6 points from the Champions League, that's not a lot at all. But you kind of get my point of we're never going to be considered favourites to get Champions League, I don't think, this season. So I don't think we should kind of pin our hope on it. For me, we just have to finish above Newcastle and Man United, which I think we're more than capable of doing. And if we do, we finish 6th, because I'm kind of factoring in Tottenham and Chelsea also being where we are. I think they'll be our main 2 competitors for 4th, 5th. Based on where we are now, I'm not seeing as much as what I saw at the start of last season to suggest that we're going to be 4th. I don't know. I don't want that to sound negative because that isn't my goal this season. We need to see a bit more from the team to suggest we are going to be a 4th place side again.
Yeah, well, I think you can take something from that. It is the cliche that we've still managed to get the points we have whilst not playing our perfect usual selves. There's something in that. We could be losing these games and we could be where United are, and then that would be more concerning. I think again, another comparison to last year is that I'm pretty certain this is correct, and forgive me if I'm wrong, that the fixture that we've just had last year, the kind of one to get us to the 7th game, was Brighton. So we thrashed Brighton at home 6-1.
Yeah, you're right.
Absolutely blowing them away. Really like, wow, where did that come from? We're a proper team. Like, we're really putting something together here. Compare that to Man United, where we're feeling like, we've kind of eked our way towards the international break. Yes, we've had the Champions League, and that is a totally different proposition to the Conference League, and we're 6 points from 6 in the Champions League. Like, I still think it's been a great start overall.
Yeah, it's just
I feel like the kind of momentum that we had last season at this stage was kind of really on the up, whereas this year it's a bit like, okay, we're good, but we're not amazing. But I still think if you're chipping away and getting results, I think those amazing kind of, you win 4 in a row and you go, okay, all right, we're cooking now. That will come, I think.
Yeah, and that's I'm positive about it because, as I said, I want us to finish top 6 this season. If it's 4th, then fantastic. But if it's 6th, also fantastic, because I'm just happy with that. Champions League would be brilliant, but I said before, Europa League, I wouldn't mind just having a stab at that and trying to win it. Honestly, that'd be great to go deep in the competition. Maybe we'll in the Champions League as well because we've just beaten Bayern and the Young Boys. So we'll see what happens. But it's just, I'm not going to sit here and say that after every podcast, we dropped points, but then this team picked up points. So, 4th, are we going to get it? If they do, then they do. We'll just see where we are come March, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I just want to be in the conversations of top 6, top 4, in and around it, as I say, come February, come March, that time of the year. And then we can just attack it and see where we are in the Champions League. What do we have to balance? Where are our players injury-wise? Try and keep a little buffer between ourselves, Newcastle United and Man United and Brighton, those teams, kind of keep ourselves ahead of them and just kind of lodge ourselves in the conversation for Champions League football. If we can attack at the end of the season, then fantastic. But yeah, I get what you're saying, Dan. It feels a bit like, if you compare us to last season, we went and won, 15 games in a row at home from the back end of last season, or 16 from last season to January or something. We might not do that again this season, but Emery said post-match that he feels like we're getting in that rhythm of that kind of momentum at home, which I can feel that a little bit, to be fair. I know we drew to United, but the Bayern game, we had enough about us when we didn't play well to get over the line against Wolves and Everton. So there is a positive in that, in terms of the Villa Park backing basically got us through that, I think. But equally, you want to basically see us win a match 2-0 and not really break into a sweat and not be concerned that we're not going to win the game against those sides who might be battling relegation. So yeah, it's I think it's going to be a very entertaining season, whatever happens, and I will absolutely take 6th place if that's what comes this campaign.
Yeah, I think that's a really kind of measured look at the start of the season so far, in my opinion at least. We'll see what the comments think. If people disagree, then let us know your thoughts as always. But I think that's a fair assessment of where we are at the moment. Let's get into some of these questions. But first, John, a little ad break, which will be quite funny because not everyone gets ads. So if you didn't get one, welcome back. First question then from David says, here's a question for you. What would you rather have had this week or last week? Beat Bayern Munich and draw to Man United, or lose to Bayern Munich but beat Man United?
Oh, horrible.
Can I go first?
Can I just, before the Bayern game, I would have said Man United win.
Yeah, I think that's correct, because I was anticipating to lose to Bayern Munich anyway, to be perfectly honest. So I would have kind of taken that situation to see that come to fruition. I think we're going to lose anyway, so we'll lose, but then we'll beat Man United. So I also think that will happen. So I'll take what I expect is what I would have thought beforehand. I'd either be kind of too over the top here, but I don't think I'd swap anything for the night that Bayern Munich was. Like, that was a historic kind of moment. Like, to trade that for just, I know beating Man United is important and the league's important, but I don't think I'd swap anything for Bayern, would you?
In terms of a result, if you compare two results, then yeah, beating a massive club at Villa Park on a Champions League night, your first one, it doesn't really get any better than that. I don't think I would swap it, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't want to lose to Man United, though. That's what I would say. So, put it this way, I think I'd keep with what we had. I know that's not the question, but I wouldn't swap anything for what we've experienced, because ultimately football is about moments and memories without sounding cringe, and you can't take that away from anyone now. So, I'd definitely keep it. Again, we're fifth in the Premier League and we can make up those 2 points elsewhere in the season. Like, if we lost 4-0 to United, that might be a bit different, but that didn't happen. We drew when in any other year we'd have probably lost the match. So, I'm happy with that.
Something slightly different from Rich. He said, if you could have another mural painted somewhere around Villa Park of 3 or 4 players from different eras, who would those players be? Now, I appreciate this is putting you right on the spot, and I misread this before. I didn't realise it was from different eras. So I've got an answer in mind, but it's not to what the question is. I've just answered what mural would I like. So should we do that instead?
I'd probably, 4 players?
You can answer the question as Rich asks, yeah?
Yeah, I'd probably go for John Duran 4 times.
Different goal celebration. To be fair, he does about 4 different goal celebrations for every goal. So that'd be quite easy.
One goal, just different freeze frames. John Duran.
My answer would be, I'd like something to do with John McGinn. I don't know what specifically, but something I think that would showcase like the journey that he's had. So whether it's like an image of him in every kit that we've had, or just like one lifting the playoff trophy and then the other one of his goal celebration, or ideally winning another trophy would be the great way to mark that. But kind of his journey of Villa's journey, basically from the Championship under new ownership to promotion to survival to the Champions League, to have that kind of on the side of the whole tender, whatever would be, I think that'd be really nice.
Yeah, I totally agree. John McGinn needs to have something. Obviously, not like a statue. I think that's kind of a way, with all due respect to what John McGinn's done for the club, but a mural for sure to kind of mark his impact on the club. Because you're right, it's this isn't a player who's just made 100 appearances and done well. He's had the journey, and he's don't want this to sound like brutal, but survived it as well. Because not many players could do that. So that's full credit to him. So yeah, absolutely worthy of a place in a mural. I don't know about previous, but it's difficult because I feel like it's very like recency bias, because I want Martinez and Watkins are already on a mural, so that blows what I'm about to say there. But I don't know, like Mings as well, like that kind of vibe, because that's where we are. If you kind of give one to Martin Larsson, I don't know, like it'd be good, but also it doesn't quite celebrate what we're doing now. By the way, I do like the kind of the mural stuff. It's quite colourful outside of Villa Park. It makes you feel like, you want basically every brick wall around Villa Park to be claret and blue and with different things. That would be really cool if that's what they're planning. I don't know if they can have permission to do that from the council, but I really like that, because it's kind of like you're entering Villa Park, obviously, but it just feels different. It's much better than going to different stadiums and stuff. I always say this, but nothing ever comes close to Villa Park. When you're in the stadium, outside, it looks cool as well, because you've got like the Aston Church and different things going on. But splashes of claret and blue as well would be really cool. Or more of that.
James asks, since Emery has come in, we've notoriously played a super high line and used to catch the opposition offside 10 times every game. That doesn't seem to be the case this season, or at least not as extreme. Have we changed, or has the opposition players cottoned onto it? I think straight off the bat, again, not without any looking at any stats of how high our defensive line is in terms of yards, it feels just watching it that at times we are deeper than we were last year.
Yeah, it does feel like that, but I think you've got to evolve and change. I think it's much, you're kind of, I mean, put it this way, if you look at Tottenham, I still think Tottenham are a very good side, but I think if Ange continues to do what he's doing for another 2 years, should we say, I don't think he'll be in a job, because
I was going to say he won't be there in 2 years.
There are ways to overcome that, and it's not just putting the ball in behind. I'm not a fantastic tactician myself, but there's other strategies you can use to beat a team with a high line. As I say, without just playing the ball through, it's pressing them. It's other things. It's different methods. So I'm not totally surprised that Unai's changed that to a degree. We're obviously playing a high line to an extent, but it's not as radical, shall I say, as it was last season. Because again, teams, this is the best league in the world because all the managers are incredibly good tactically, so they will be able to identify different weaknesses in your team. You need to keep the opposition guessing, essentially. So no, I'm not surprised that this is happened. Next season we'll see something different again and again and again. Like the first year when Emery was here, we had Alex Moreno playing as a winger, and I know we still have that really with Luca Dean, but the way that we played was very obvious, to a point where if we did that the following season, last season, it would be quite easy to kind of combat, I suppose, and it would be less effective. So what we're doing this season, what I would say is I'm a bit concerned that what we did in pre-season, you know, again, Conte playing as centre-back, but then that isn't really happening now because Carlos is here still and we didn't get into the right back in. So that has not really changed that setup there. What happens when Kamara comes in with Onana and Tielemans and McGinn, and there's Duran now is going to be starting games. So there's a lot kind of going on, and I'm a bit worried that what we've planned isn't really going to happen. But we have Emery, who again can fix things within a couple of days before any specific game. So not like too worried, but also a bit like it's a shame that we couldn't just kind of have one fixed thing and we're all ready to do it.
There's two questions here about Morgan Rogers, so let's do them together. From John, first of all. Morgan Rogers has been superb so far this season, but do you think it's time to give him a rest after the international break? And Craig says, Morgan Rogers, too many loose touches. Would he be better on the left with Bailey next to Watkins? Craig's, first of all, I think is possibly a solution that we will see with Duran. You know, we kind of say about playing two up top isn't something that we tend to see, and Rodgers isn't playing as a striker, but he's the closest player supporting Watkins. To swap that role to be Duran wouldn't be wildly different, and Rodgers would then go to the left. But Rodgers, apart from Man United, has been very good this year, operating in that little space, and it would be a shame to disrupt that. But these are the options that we've got now.
I really didn't want to criticise Rodgers after the game because I just thought, you know, for a player that's, I think he's 22, very inexperienced in the Premier League still. So what he's shown, I don't want to kind of criticise him at the standards that we expected him, because he's not going to be playing 10 out of 10 every week or playing to his absolute best ability. And by the way, I think he was fine up until the final ball. Yeah, a couple of loose touches, but that's to be expected with any player, unless you're...
That can happen, can't it, from time to time?
Yeah. Even Messi has a bad game. So it was just his final ball for me that wasn't spot on, which is actually unlike him. Usually he is quite clinical. So if he had scored that chance when he, I think he shot a goal, but then it hit the side netting, and then the North Stand thought it went in at that moment. If that went in, we'd be talking about a completely different thing. It'd be the match-winning goal, because I don't think United would have scored because they're not particularly good. And then there was a moment at the end of the game where he tried to like clip it. He got stuck in two minds: clip it at the back post or curl it into the top corner. And then it was just like, that basically sums up the performance of just it was flat. Not quite sure what we're doing or how to score. So yeah, I'm not going to criticise him too much. I thought he was pretty much fine up until his final ball. I did say before the match I thought it was a game which he would take by the scruff of the neck, and he was in the first few minutes when Eriksen got booked, and I thought, here we go. And Mainly got booked, I think. Rashford got booked and should have got booked again. Maguire got booked. It felt like a game where Villa were going to grow into it, and Rodgers was going to be the key there. And that's why I was a bit like, when Duran came on, and I thought, I just want Rodgers in the middle of the pitch to make use of that gaping hole. The United players were going to get tired. Casemiro came on, which is a massive bonus for us. I just thought that would be a moment for us to, capitalise on, because I thought it was almost like a matter of time before Rodgers was going to make something happen. Because he was threatening to do it, but in the end wasn't to be. But I'm absolutely fine with him. The thing about Duran and Watkins up front, I need to see how that works. And yes, Rodgers played off the left last season and did very well. But what happens, as I said, in the middle of the pitch then between the double pivot and the two strikers, does Duran drop deep and almost be like a link man? Can he do that? I don't know. But no, I want Bailey on the right. I don't want him kind of in the middle of the pitch. He gets lost a little bit. I much prefer him one-on-one, beating his man. That's how to get the best out of him, I think.
Yeah, just away from Rodgers a little bit. But on the game on Sunday, when the team news came out and Maguire and Johnny Evans were Man United centre-back pairing in 2024, I was laughing and I thought, Watkins is going to have a field. Don't get me wrong, like after the fact, like I get the kind of good, solid pro defenders kind of thing experience. I get all that, but in terms of like their physical ability, the pacing behind should have been something that Villa were doing all day. Balls behind, Watkins off the shoulder, rinsing them is what I was expecting, and that was something that frustrated me a little bit during the game. Like, I get it. What I just said, they're kind of rough and tumble defenders. They're going to get the best of you physically in terms of like the battle, but I thought the ball in behind and kind of giving them the slip and that kind of stuff. I thought Watkins on 30 whatever year old Johnny Evans is, I thought he'd have a field day, and the fact that wasn't how it came to be was like, how have we not exploited that?
I get that. I actually would have rather have come up against De Ligt and Martinez because that clearly isn't a partnership. Genuinely, I don't know how to. I'm not saying this just because after the event, but I'm saying to Jacob before the game started, like, this is not going to be as simple as it looks, because all United fans saying, "Oh, this partnership," and it's probably your best partnership, lads. Maguire from set pieces is fantastic. We didn't have Onana, so that works for them. Maguire is also just hated on, to be honest. Yeah, he's not the best defender in the world, but he's also capable, better than De Ligt in terms of positioning, in my opinion, and he knows that team better than most players. And then Johnny Evans, if he was 10 years younger, I think everyone would be saying great defender. So in that specific match, in that moment, that's not a partnership you want to be seeing moving forward if you're a Man United fan. But in that match, I wasn't surprised that they did okay. But you're right, Dan, I'd like to have seen us test them more. But I think that was different reasons. Energy, the way United set up as well, to Ten Hag's credit, I think he got that pretty much spot on. They didn't allow Villa to have many opportunities unless it was Rodgers turning Eriksen or something. But again, Villa's kind of lack of poise and attacking verve kind of meant that they had a easier day of it. But Johnny Evans was man of the match and defended very well. So, not like all too surprised that they did kind of fine. But again, I put that more down to Villa than United having a good game. Okay,
let's move on. James, a different James, says, do you think we're struggling to find the right balance between attacking fluidity and defensive solidarity? I'm hoping that Kamara is the key to finding the balance, which is something we feel like we speak about every week, to be honest. We're kind of hoping that Kamara is this silver bullet to solve all of our problems, which may not be the case. We all hope that it is, though. It does feel a little bit like, and I think we actually had a question asked about this last week, about like, do we compromise our attacking play by being more solid? I think that's exactly what you saw against Man United. It was a bitty game, never really got going. We've got the clean sheet, happy days, but going forward, we clearly weren't our usual.
Yeah, I think you are right. We did have a question similar, or at least I gave the answer of Kamara, I think, for me is the key, because I remember saying if Kamara comes back and we don't look more defensively secure without being able to compromise to the attack, then I don't quite know how we're going to deal with that. But again, I'm not Unai Emery. So it's fantastic that we've kept 2 clean sheets, by the way, brilliant. But you're right, I think firstly, in a game like Bayern Munich, I think that actually suits us at Villa Park, because we beat Arsenal City last season playing in a similar way, beat Bayern Munich. Could have beaten Arsenal again if we took those chances. So that suits us to kind of play on the break and take chances. But then when you're coming up against sides who you want to kind of be a bit more expansive against, it does worry me, the defensive side. So Kamara coming back, I think will be key here. And if it's not, then we're going to have to try and just win games 3-2. Less attacking quality than what we're going to be coming up against. Again, away from home against Chelsea, Tottenham, Liverpool, those teams, At home, I'm not too concerned, because I think we can kind of camp in a little bit and play our football, play our game, and get a good result from it.
I'm not sure we know the answer to the next question, but I've included it anyway, from Footy Mad Villain, who DM'd me last night. He says, what is the standard of training like? We're getting so many injuries. Is it the amount of games that we're playing, or is our training too intense?
I don't know the answer to that because obviously I don't watch training. And what I would say is obviously it's a lot of shape work with Unai, a lot of video analysis. I don't know whether because it's the start of the season, and to be honest, a lot of those players haven't actually had a rest because the Euros happened, Copa America, different things. Last season was so full on anyway. These players, like John McGinn, for example, very rarely got injured, and now picks up a hamstring injury because he's played like something ridiculous. He was like 70 games last season or something like that, which is far too many games. He'll be asked to do something similar again this season if Villa go far in the Champions League, which hopefully they do. People are just going to pick up injuries and not play great football because there are too many games. And I hate that it's the international break, but they're playing in the international break. They're not actually having that rest because you're right, they don't just play every couple of days. I think it's a kind of a myth that players can't play twice in a week and stuff, but then they are also training a lot. And then they're being asked to play more Champions League games, being asked to play Club World Cup, as I said, and Nations League. There's too much going on. So before, when it was 2 games a week and there'd be a rest coming up, then fine, they can cope with that. But now it's getting to the point where it's just too much, and players are going to pick up more ACLs, more hamstring injuries. The football, the quality is going to be worse, as we saw against Man United. So yeah, it's not a particularly ideal situation. I'm not going to put it down to like training methods or anything because Villa didn't pick up too many injuries when Unai first walked through the door. I put the injuries down to too many games.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. But as you say, we've not seen training. Somebody else asked, and I've not included it in this, but along the lines of like, have we picked up more injuries than anyone else? I've not fact checked that, and everyone feels like their own team is getting the brunt of every refereeing decision or every injury or whatever. But it does feel like we've picked up a fair amount already, considering we've only played 7 league games.
I think at the start of the season, that is probably correct. If anyone else has more than us, then I don't know, to be honest, but I don't think so. But they've only been like kind of small niggling injuries, but those small niggling injuries mean you miss 3 games or 2 games, or you're not right for the next one, which is, in the course of this season, very big and important because Villa, if they had a fully fit team all the time, I would say they'd finish in the top 4, absolutely. But that isn't the case. We're going to miss some players. Bailey hasn't been at it so far this season because of injury. McGinn, we didn't have other players as well. Watkins at the start of the season wasn't fully fit. We probably would have beaten Arsenal if he was. So, yeah, it's not an ideal situation, but this is something that we're going to have to deal with. Last season we did, and we finished 4th, and we went to the semi-final of the Conference League. So I'm not kind of too concerned, but a bit worried that it's already a lot at the start of the season.
Johnny says, not interested in talk of starters or finishers. If everyone's fit, what is our best 11 for a Champions League final?
Okay.
And yes, all that, like, it depends who you play, blah, 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 but give me an 11.
Well, this is what I was... Can I give you... All right. Oh, God. It does depend on who we play, though. Like, genuinely, it actually does.
I know it does, but it doesn't for this.
I'm going to have to, like... this is really... The midfield is really difficult here. Right. This is a team if we play Leicester at home, for example.
No, it's the Champions League final. Why are you talking about Leicester at home?
All right.
Right, John, you've had time to think while I just answered a phone call that my wardrobe delivery has been cancelled. Don't be an adult, mate. So irritating. So have you got a best 11 for me in a Champions League final, yes or no?
No, I was putting with the washing. I do, but the key thing here, right? Onana and Kamara, I'm really... Because I want John McGinn in my 11, but it's difficult. I feel like Onana has to play. So does John McGinn. So does Kamara when he comes back. I think is the glue. It's really hard. So what I've gone with, and I've settled on Kamara because, and I've got 2 different teams. The first one is a team that we should beat at home. Leicester City at home, right? I like the Torres, Konsa, and Kamara back 3. So when we push against an opponent, that is the base that we work off, build up. And then you'd have left wing back in Luca Dean or Ian Maatson. Matty Cash would play right wing back because Yuri Tielemans, John McGinn as a 2, and then you've got Rodgers on the left, Bailey on the right, and Watkins up front. I like that. I really want an honour in there, so I'm kind of like, well, then McGinn would have to come out because I'm not bringing out Tielemans. So in this team, essentially, McGinn or Onana has to play unless you get an injury through Rodgers or Bailey and McGinn pushes further forward. It's really difficult. So anyone who's giving me hate in the comments, do it yourself and work it out because it is hard. The only other way I would do it would be a back 4 and you'd bring in Carlos. You'd have Konsa right back. So that kind of base that obviously got wins against Arsenal, City, Bayern. That back four, Konsa right back, McGinn, Rodgers, Bailey behind Watkins, and then a double pivot of Tielemans and Onana or Kamara. Again, it's really hard. That midfield is really difficult. So what I would say is Villa are never, I don't think, going to have like a fully fit team where we're even going to have the difficulty of selecting between like Tielemans, Kamara, even Barkley, John McGinn, and Onana or Kamara, whoever I didn't say. That's the difficulty here. So those are the two systems that I have, kind of a more defensive approach and a more attacking approach.
Yeah.
You work it out.
I'm going to give you an alternative that I know there were people in the comments screaming at you. And I think we've spoken about this before. So if we have, my apologies. Forget the kind of Kamara starting in midfield and inverting back to a right back three kind of hybrid thing.
Yeah.
Can Kamara just start right back and you keep the rest of it as is?
I don't really like that because you really don't have.
He's not a right back.
Yeah, and our right back. If firstly we put it two ways in those kind of two systems I'm talking about. It's much more detailed than this, but attacking and defensive essentially. In the defensive one, Konsa is your best defensive right back, so you're not going to put Kamara there. And then in the more attacking one, Matty Cash is your best attacking right back. It's not Kamara. So for me, it would be kind of just putting him there for no real reason. So yeah, it's not something I would do. The only other way, if you want to be even more attacking, would maybe be to put Bailey as that kind of right wing back, essentially. Basically, someone who's going to hug the top. Philogene as well, but a player who's going to essentially hug that touch line. That's something that I think Cash does quite well because the box crasher, etc. But having that defensive solidity of Kamara, Torres, and Konsa behind, you could probably play Bailey maybe instead of Cash, and then have another attacking option, be it Duran or Jacob Ramsey or something. But you're really good option. But I am still wary that Villa aren't particularly great defensively. So there's going to be stages in matches against any opponent where we hit on the counter attack, and you want a defender defending rather than. Philijone's fantastic, I think, defensively for his position, but you'd still rather have Matty Cash defending that player than someone else. As we saw against Man United, by the way, again, saved a goal pretty much at the end.
Couple of football questions to go. This one is from James, who says, there's a lot of Jameses, I feel like. It's not the same guys. Definitely different guys. Do you guys have any traditions or superstitions for games, such as a lucky charm, a match day meal, or a routine that you adhere to? Do you ever change these following a defeat? I've got to take issue with his second point. I wear the current season's home shirt, unwashed all season. Brackets, I only wear it to matches, never wear it elsewhere, with a bit of Febreze.
Nah, sorry, James, you can't do that.
Can you be doing that? Match days are like, depending on your routine, a few hours, let's say, right? You're wearing that shirt for a few hours.
Also, hours of like
weathers and stuff.
Is it just me that sweats in 90 minutes? When it's
probably, yeah, probably. But like the walk to the train station or whatever, the walk to the stadium, going crazy for a couple of hours, chanting. I would think by like maybe around now, a few home games, I'd be thinking, well, should probably get it to wash.
I would wash it after every game just because I'm quite.
You're a clean freak, I reckon.
No, not even that. I've put my washing up just then. No, James maybe is very like cool and collected, and maybe goes to the games and he doesn't get particularly stressed, and he's not sweating or anything. So if that is the case, then maybe like a few two games maximum. I wouldn't have done it for.
I don't want to come across like we're bullying James here. Like if this is what you do and you smell fine and everything's great, happy days.
Any like away game when Villa are under the cosh, I'm there like shaking and my heart's going so quickly. I'm not wearing that shirt again for the next match, put it that way. So not for me, James, but hey, you do you. If we finish fourth again, then
it's on him. That wasn't his question. I feel like we've just been rude to James there, so apologies. No, his question was like, what do you do?
Of course.
Do you have any routines and stuff?
I don't. No, I don't.
I don't really. Like my match day probably looks quite similar every time in terms of like what we do and what kind of time we leave and stuff. But I wouldn't call those kind of superstitions or anything.
They're not superstitions, but it is really weird how if you deviated from that, it would feel like a whole different experience. I obviously, when I had a season ticket, I'd go with my brother and my dad, and we'd do the same thing. So that's what you do. It's the easiest way to get there, etc., etc. And you just fall into a habit. But if we're a little bit late, even by like half an hour, I'm feeling like wasted half an hour. Like I wanted to be here earlier. Or if I'm going a different route, or if I go with someone else, I went with someone else once, like literally once, and we went through. We come from like the back of the North Stand or something, and that was completely different for me, and I really didn't like it. Not because it was the North Stand, because it's completely different. And we were there like 10 minutes before kickoff, and I was like, I'm stressed.
Every so often I do think, and I did this for Man United, what I wore for a win, I would think, I'll wash it. I'm not like James. I'll think, I wore that hoodie for Wednesday. I'll wear it again. But it didn't work for Man United, so it obviously means all.
Yeah. I remember when we won a couple of games back to back, I think it was the West Brom and what was it? Christ, because we didn't win many games like a few years ago when we were in the Premier League, and it was the West Brom semi-final, and then did we beat them again? No, back-to-back games.
We beat them twice in a week, yeah.
Yeah, I was wearing the same Villa shirt then, so I wore it again, and that happened. But yeah, it's really like crap answer, so sorry, James, and the audience were boring.
Yeah, it doesn't work anyway. Like I wore the same thing for Bayern Munich as I did for Man United, and it meant nothing. So I would now think, well, I won't wear that hoodie for another game because it didn't work last time anyway.
You got to find the right one, like James. Just find the right.
Possibly, yeah. Final question from Graham says, right, international break, 4 league games when we come back. How many points? Fulham away, Bournemouth at home, Spurs away, and Liverpool away. So we've just come off a month of playing at Villa Park pretty much exclusively, and then a lot of away games to come in the league anyway. What do you reckon? Feels quite difficult, those 4, don't they?
I think I'd take 5 points right now.
Are you really?
Yeah, I would, yeah.
So that's being unbeaten in 3 and losing 1.
So beating Bournemouth at home, drawing against Fulham away and Tottenham away, and losing to Liverpool. I don't think that would be a bad return, genuinely. I know that might sound a bit optimistic, but although you could put it this way, anything worse than that would be... I don't know, because Fulham away is a really difficult game. They've started well. Us winning there last season was a massive result, like genuinely, because of how it came, because we had different injuries, etc. But Fulham are a really good team. And yeah, going there, if we win, would be brilliant. I'll be absolutely buzzing about it. Those are the games that I really love, when you win against sides. Obviously, if we beat Liverpool away, like incredible, but almost just like, what the hell happened? But when you go to somewhere and you're like, we just need to win today, and you do it, it just feels like, getting there. I don't know. But Fulham away is a difficult game, so a point would be acceptable in my opinion. Tottenham away, obviously, again, you just want to kind of avoid defeat. Winning there would be great. And I know we beat both those teams away last season, and then people will be thinking, you have to replicate it. It doesn't work like that, though. If we beat Leicester at home, well, we didn't beat Sheffield United at home last season. So
Forest.
Yeah, it will ebb and flow. On the face of it, a draw against Fulham away isn't a bad result. A draw away against Tottenham isn't a bad result. Liverpool away would be a very difficult game, but you'd need to beat Bournemouth at home. So I would probably take 5 points. Anything more than that would be brilliant. You know what, though? Like, we can beat Tottenham. So I'm just trying to... I know I'm a bit kind of like glass half full kind of guy. Or is that right?
Empty.
Yeah, empty. Sorry. Jesus.
You're literally the opposite of the analogy. You're the empty side.
I'm a glass half empty kind of guy. Ultimately, I'm looking at like the lowest points total that we can, whereas other people will be looking at, we can beat Spurs, we can beat Fulham, so let's get 9 points and draw against Liverpool. But I just think you have to the expectation this season for me is doing what we're expected to do. And if we do that, we finish in the top 6 for me. Great. So anything more than 5 points for me would be, a welcome bonus, but I'm not expecting us to beat Fulham and beat Tottenham and beat Bournemouth and then get something to Liverpool. I just don't think that's too realistic. I don't think we should kind of be piling on that expectation on us. So we've got some difficult games coming up. We haven't had particularly difficult games before now. So, I'm looking forward to see how we compete.
Obviously, there's added context here that Bologna is between Fulham and Bournemouth, and Crystal Palace in the League Cup is between Bournemouth and Spurs.
3 home games and all that.
And Brugge is between Tottenham and Liverpool. So, there's more than 4 games in this little run that we're talking about. There's 7. I think 6 is what I would be like my minimum from those 4 league games. I think 7 is probably what we will actually get. But I would like us to keep ticking along with this 2 points a game thing, which would be 8 from those 4. But that means going unbeaten, winning 2 and drawing 2, which again isn't impossible. I mean, we could even get 9. Like, we could get more points by not going unbeaten and winning 3, losing 1. So I would like to be around that area still throughout the season as best as we can.
I know we're only talking about these games, but I'd like to stretch it a little bit further because we have the home games coming up are pretty good, actually. We have Bournemouth at home, Palace at home, Brentford at home, and Southampton at home. Win all those 4, and then you kind of just get what you can on the road. So that's why I'm saying Fulham away, if we get a point, decent. If we get a point against Tottenham, again, great. Because for me, if you can just win those 4 home games, points in the bag.
Yeah.
Get a few on the road. We have Chelsea away coming up as well. So we've got some hard away games. We competed very well away from home last season. Not expecting us to be doing that again, to be perfectly honest with you. If we can, though, fantastic. But the home games for me are the ones this season, like last season. If we can just get those wins where we are expected to, then we'll be in good shape to go away from home and get what we can.
Okay, let's do the silly question then. We've got 4 left on our list that we had about, I think we had about 12, and we've rattled our way through them. So if you're listening to this or watching, get involved in the comments with some silly questions to keep that stock going. Pick me a number between 1 and 4, please, John.
4.
4. From Sarah Jane. If Unai wins the Premier League or the Champions League, will you name your firstborn or your next child Unai?
Christ.
I like that there's a bit of added context there that they've not just gone with firstborn because I've already got one. They've put one in by next child as well.
No, I wouldn't. I would just be glad that we won the Champions League or the Premier League and then name its winner.
Should we do another one?
Yeah, go on. Number 2.
Number 2. This is great. From Chelt Villa. If John could choose to be any Villa player for a day, who would he be? He has to live as them, train as them, look after their families, and eat every meal he thinks they would eat. There's a lot of caveats to that.
Okay.
Because you can pick Ollie Watkins, and all of a sudden you've got a couple of kids to look after. You know, you got to think about that.
Yeah. Ooh.
It could be John Duran, who's just signed a new contract. He just had a pay rise. You know, it's very different what answer you pick here.
I was going to say John Duran, just a day in the life of John Duran. Who knows what would happen? It would be great. But the food thing is throwing me, if I'm being totally honest.
Why? Don't they not just eat all the same stuff at Bodymore, largely?
I don't know. The question threw me a little bit of you have to eat what they would eat, which means that they would choose something specifically that they want, right?
Yeah. So you're thinking about like cultures of like if you're Pau Torres, you've got to eat paella all the time.
Yeah, and I'm down for that. I'm thinking South American, so maybe it would have to be Duran. And he's also got no responsibilities. He has no kids, I presume. And yeah, you know what? We'll go with it. JD.
I had a weird thought go through my head the other day, and I don't know where this came from. It's during the game, which is bizarre. I was trying to think. I don't know what sparked this in my head. I don't know whether it was a United player, but I couldn't think of any Villa players who shared the same first name apart from John Duran and John McGinn, and it's not even spelt the same. But if you said it, you'd think it's the same name. Like normally, you kind of have a couple of Harrys or whatever, but there's no. All the Villa players got that. Emmy, yeah. Damn it. Cut that out. Get rid of it.
You know what I was thinking? I thought you were going to say there's no Villa player that has the first name of Dan. Who had the first name of Dan? I'm talking like ever. I can't think of any. And then obviously one, but I can't think of any.
Even a Daniel I'd take. Oh, there must be one. Come on. We must be missing one, an obvious one here.
I can't think off the top of my head.
What about Dan Crowley?
Yeah, I guess. But like, there's not a.
That's the first one that came up on Google, so that probably tells you everything you need to know.
Yes, if you've made it this far in the podcast, leave your Villa players about the name Daniel in the comments below.
I don't think there is any.
That's what I mean. That's what I thought you were going to say, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right." But then you said something.
Something more stupid. Yeah. Okay, right. Let's end this podcast with the comment of the week. I've actually got 3, but they're all exactly the same kind of like vibe. I'm just going to say them without any context and see if you remember like what this was about. Rach, first of all, says, John getting an education in how time works and getting old. Priceless. I say what I think says, oh, having that getting old realization, thinking bloody hell. And Sean says, I will always remember this as the episode where John realizes how time works.
I do remember saying a really stupid comment. Have you got it hand?
I haven't got it to hand, but I will edit it into the episode here. We expect our first baby in 9 days, or probably 7 or 8 days now. Knowing I have to drive 2 hours back to South Wales if I get the call.
Born in 2025. I know that sounds stupid, but they will be 10 years old in 2034 actually, if it's born in 9 days.
You see, humans are going to keep being born as time progresses. John.
No, I know, but I'm trying to get to the point of when you see the players born in 2012.
Oh, what the hell? And it's weird. The reason I've put this in is we do so much kind of content, not in comparison to some, but we did all the Bayern stuff, we did Ipswich, we did Man United preview, we obviously done Man United post-match since, and I was scrolling back through the comments of last week's Q&A for this section and saw all that about the stuff about the time, and my first reaction was what were we even talking about? And then I had that thing of oh yeah, it was that stupid thing. And it's just funny how you just say things on a podcast sometimes and don't really have any thought, but then someone will come up to you and be in the stadium and be oh, when John said this about this, and you go, what are you talking? Oh yeah, yeah. Do you know what I mean?
We chat a lot of you know what I mean?
Rubbish.
And then you forget you say it. So who knows what we would have said in today's episode? Yeah,
you do forget what you've said, which is a little bit scary sometimes, especially when I don't put much time into the edit. If I've got something out quick, I think what if I've fast forwarded through a bit where we've said something stupid and left it in, and I wanted to cut it out, but I haven't. So hopefully I've edited this one properly. John, thank you for joining me as always. Thanks everyone for watching along or listening to this episode of the Claret and Blue podcast. We'll be back later in the week. Me and Matt Kendrick will be bringing you an episode on Friday or Saturday. I'm not sure yet. Yesterday, John and I did the episode about John Duran signing his new contract. So if you missed that, go back and catch up on that as well. Our instant reaction to that breaking news on Monday morning. But yeah, we'll see you again later in the week. Cheers, everyone.